Hello, everyone. My name is Halyna Yanchenko. I'm a member of Parliament of Ukraine, actively involved in parliamentary diplomacy. Dr. Roubini, I have a question to you. Well, you said a couple of things that sort of resonated here, but maybe in a slightly wrong way. Well, first you said that counteroffensive was not successful, despite the fact that Ukraine have got all the weapons we've got. The thing is that we didn't got the weapon we needed. You know very well, I'm pretty sure that you are educated about the article of General Zaluzhny, who calculated exactly the amount of tanks, 300, artillery, 500, and then armored vehicle, up to 700 that we needed to get back to basically the borders before the February 23. We didn't get that weapon. We didn't get the long-range missiles that we needed before the counter-offensive operation had started. We didn't receive F-16. So in my humble opinion, and I believe many of Ukrainians who are here can also agree, we did not receive the weapon to make the counter-offensive successful. And therefore, it is really weird to hear some Western leaders and some Western intellectuals blame Ukraine that despite the weapon we received, we did not make a successful counteroffensive. And now the question. You said that the circumstances around Ukrainian war basically pushes Ukraine and the whole world to start negotiations. So my question is, what in your opinion have changed in Putin's mind to make these negotiations successful? Because once again, couple historical facts. First, President Zelensky have won presidential election as a candidate who was promoting peace. He said that he will do everything. He will, put himself on his knees before Putin to actually finish the war. And he did a lot of negotiations after he won elections. But Putin, in 2022, he started full-scale invasion, despite all the efforts provided by and committed by Zelensky. Second, we, as Ukrainian power authorities, were very looking forward for negotiations even after full-scale invasion. We have sent our negotiation mission to Minsk, the country which was basically used to invade in Ukraine. Do you know what happened with negotiation team? They were poisoned. Third, Russia has broke each and every negotiation agreement we reached in Belarus after full-scale invasion and later in Turkey. So we agreed a lot about, for example, green corridors to evacuate civilians from the occupation. Do you know what Russian troops were doing to these basically civilians who were moving on civilian cars with signed children on the front windows? They were shooting these people, shooting children, shooting women. So, once again, my question to you, Dr. Roubini, is what, in your opinion, have changed in Putin's mind to make this negotiation that you are promoting successful and finish the war? Thank you.
Thank you. This is a very tough question.
Observations. First of all, even if there was a ceasefire along the current lines, Putin has lost this war. He went there and literally was delusional and thought in 2 weeks he'll be in Kiev, take over the entire Ukraine and put a puppet government and control it and then control all the other near abroad and so on. He has miserably failed, okay? Before this war, maybe they'd taken over 14% of Ukraine, now it's maybe 18. But that goal has been lost. Ukraine united is never going to be part of Russia. It's going to be part of Europe. It's going to be part of NATO. And the economic cost on Russia has been a disaster. Potential growth in Russia before this war was barely 1.5%. It was pathetic for a country, it's a million country. Before 5%, it was a disaster. Aging of population and so on. After this war, potential growth of Russia with all the sanctions, they're going to be forever on them, is closer to zero. You have a brain drain with the smartest people in Russia escaping. You have a war economy. You have inflation. You have sanctions that are going to not even allow Russia to produce as much oil as they did in the past. Their entire manufacturing base is going to be damaged by the sanctions. So they've already lost The military war, the economic war, the financial war, even if the sanctions have not been yet effective in changing the regime. So they've lost, period. And I think that eventually that's going to lead even to a collapse of regime, and maybe a new regime is more willing to discuss how to negotiate giving back to Ukraine the land they need. That's a reality. So people say they've won if we give up and we have the current ceasefire, the current level. It's not true. They've totally lost across the board. You have a more united NATO, more united Europe, more expanded NATO. It's been a disaster. Half of its military has died or has collapsed. It's been a total utter failure for Russia. And if he was not a dictator, he'll be kicked out of power. Eventually will be kicked out of power. That's a reality. Then, you know, and I'm believing actually optimistically the US Republican Democrats are going to give a compromise on the money and on the military aid. Europe is going to do its share. But my view, and maybe I'm wrong, that even if you give all the money, and even if you give all the weapons, and they're not enough because Israel needs the weapon, Ukraine needs the weapon, Taiwan needs the weapon, US needs the weapon, China, Japan needs the weapon. There are not enough of them. There's a bottleneck of capacity of providing weapons to all the important places in the world. And maybe Ukraine is first and foremost, but there are other security threats you deal with. Unfortunately, the reality on the ground is actually that this year, realistically, even if you give them more weapons, chances are the Russians can make advances more than the Ukrainians. So if you freeze it at the current level, you're lucky, because things will go actually in the wrong way, even with the weapons. So that's my view. It's not ideal, but Russia has failed. It's a failed state. Actually, the risk is that Russia collapses, it's going to split in a bunch of countries separate with nuclear weapons. It's going to be even more dangerous if Putin collapses in a disorderly way. And that will be even more dangerous for Ukraine and the West. So we have to be realistic about what's possible. And in the ideal world, step by step, we're going to go towards what's ideal. But it's not going to happen this year, unfortunately.
We have time for one more question, then I will give the final